everybody, I'm back with another video. This video is going to be looking at Aston Villa under Unai Emery. Specifically, we're going to get into their 6-2-2 low block and how they defend without the ball and how they can be so hard to score against. But first, before we get into any of the tactics in possession or out of possession, check out both my books. There's links in the description below. Check out my new tactics course. There's a link to that as well in the description, and I'm using Keyframe. That as well can be found in the description. Three big things that you can check out, and let's get right into the tactics. So first we're going to look at in possession of the ball. Aston Villa go with a more modern 4-2-2-2. And this can also be looked at as a 4-4-2. They go with two holding midfielders and two more advanced midfielders. And this forms a midfield box with two players between the lines centered around the half space, with Buendia playing more of a free role as a number 10, able to come into the central corridor and stay in the half space. Leon Bailey plays through the right half space, with McGinn on this right hand side playing in the wider area. That they form a good partnership to interchange their positions and having players occupy these different roles with different qualities. So it's an interesting dynamic on this right side. We'll see how McGinn's work rate helps them out tremendously in the defensive phase. So they look to play very vertically in possession of the ball, but they also have good stability with their two holding midfielders that allow their fullbacks to get higher up the field and get into good attacking situations. They also benefit from two strikers, which then create space for their attacking midfielders to find space between the lines with the two holding midfielders and wide and deeper fullbacks, attracting the press forward with two center strikers pinning the back line. In this case for Tottenham, often creates space between the lines for their more offensive position players. They look to create staggering between their first and second line using their holding midfielders, and the staggered connection between these players creates diagonal passing, but they don't typically look to play through their staggered double pivot like Brighton would. They usually use this more of a circulation technique to open up the far side and to rotate the ball, not so much to progress diagonally through the center, or at least not yet in this phase of Unai Emery's side. So we'll look when they defend in the midfield third and higher up, we see a more typical 4-4-2 with a very compact midfield and a very flat midfield as well. The wide players don't cheat high too early, and the two central strikers, they look to take away the holding midfielders with their cover shadows. So they play a little bit more passive in this mid block, and they really force teams to play into wide areas so they can't be broken through the center. Their vertical compactness creates control over the attacking midfield players of the other team, and their narrow back four allows them to create pressure from deeper areas, preventing players from turning. Now, usually when teams commit players forward, we'll see how the back six comes into shape. We'll see the wide midfielders drop with advancing runs from fullbacks or wingbacks from the other team, and especially in deeper areas. So when they're higher up the field, the wide players don't drop too early, as we see McGinn staying connected with his midfielders and not dropping deeper just yet to the wingback of Tottenham. But when they defend closer to their penalty area, they will look to drop these two players in and create central compactness with two holding midfielders and two central strikers, making up the 2-2 and still limiting access through the central area. So now we'll look at the wide players dropping into the back line, the very narrow back four, creating the back six. We have our two holding midfielders controlling the central corridor and the half space. So one key element of this is we see the ball is on the right hand side in the right half space. So what we'll have is our two holding midfielders shift across, one in the right half space blocking passes between the lines and one in the central corridor. So he's blocking the central passes with our central strikers maintaining their connection to one another and maintaining the shape. So they block diagonal passes into the half spaces as well and into wide areas. So ideally, when they're in this position, a ball will have to be played in the air, a mid-range pass, or back around to the central defender and out the other way, forcing them to go backwards and then forwards rather than allowing them to skip passing options and move the ball quicker from side to side. We'll also notice that even though they only play with two central midfielders and two forwards in these kind of situations, they do get pretty good pressure around the ball that allows them to play a higher line in these central areas, as we see here, Now the back six for Aston Villa leaves a lot of space in behind, which is a tendency of theirs, but without any vertical threat from Tottenham, it can work very well and be very dangerous. And with two more spatially oriented holding midfielders, pressure can come from the fullbacks in the half spaces and these narrow positions. So when they are positioned so much deeper, the pressure comes from jumping and makes it very hard for the players to turn to both see when the ball is coming. So for instance, as an example, if we see the ball coming from Højbjerg to Son, it'd be very hard for Son to perceive the ball coming forward and keep track of Ashley Young in a deeper area, jumping while he pressures him. So these are little nuances that we can see in Aston Villa's defensive shape, and it makes them very hard to play against. Also, with the two holding midfielders and central strikers around the ball, they do create numbers around the ball, even though the weak side or the far side goes relatively free, but it can be very hard when these players are compact and shift across very well to break down this very frustrating 6-2-2 shape. So let me know in the comments below what you think of Unai Emery's tactics, and I'll see you in the next video.